Thank you very much for to be here this morning. It's quite early, so thank you. Thank you once more to be here. So, why are we talking about Global Talent Challenge? Why there is a challenge, and why we're here today to try to give you some information on this and help you to face those challenges, because I think the people here are mostly people working with international talent or global mobility. So first, just to introduce ourselves, I think most of people know us by name, at least. Santa Fe is a global relocation company. We are serving our clients worldwide for more than 60 years, providing our expertise in global mobility, moving destination services, immigration all over the world, in order to permit our clients to succeed, to face challenges actually, and to succeed in their projects. So let's go directly to the topic. So why are we talking about challenges? I think all of you remember, we faced some years ago, we faced COVID pandemic. And actually, during this pandemic, this pandemic was a catalyst for increasing pressure and complexity on global talent management and global mobility. During this, why is this the case? So you can see the image just to summarize why we have these challenges. As this is because during this period we have seen globally the emerging of new forms of mobility. So we passed very quickly from a very traditional model, long-term assignment and short-term assignments, to the very complex and hybrid scheme. So we have the cross-border workers emerging from this, working from anywhere, and a lot of other types of mobility, if I may say. So this has significantly changed the position of global mobility and international HRs. And if I need to summarize the changes that has been operated after the COVID, I may say that the global mobility and international HRs has shifted from a mainly administrative function to a strategic driver of international talent manager. So growing global uncertainty, rising compliance pressure and new ways of working have accelerated this transformation. The mobility HR and HR leaders are now expected to shape a strategy and contribute directly to global talent competitiveness. So we begin to speak also on return on investment, the thing that before COVID has not been the part of HR function and global global talent and global mobility function. So we really focus on why we do assignments, how we will manage this assignment, for how many times, and also, which is very important, we have to think about what we will do after with this person, for how long we need him there, or if we're hiring someone, to say, is it a hiring for a long journey in the company? What will be this journey? How we will integrate the person after her principal mission, for example. So those questions are new in the function and are very important today for an optimized global mobility management and talent management. And actually, yes, we're speaking also about all the things related to sustainability, reducing carbon footprint, and all those questions also emerging since 3-4 years, and we have never spoken while spoken mobility or talent management. We have never spoken about those questions before. Sorry. So just to conclude on this introduction and to step the floor to Vincent, why we're speaking about this, why Santa Fe has those information, and why we are so implicated in those things. This is because since years we are doing our global mobility survey every year. We we do this survey with our clients globally and with different, our clients in different positions in different countries, and those clients are operating, some operating a lot of people globally, some are new in the mobility, and the latest research we did that we published this year really shows that mobility teams are facing increasing complexity, and the business expecting a lot more from them. And so this led us to try to understand what are the leverages we can suggest to our clients and to global mobility HRs and global talent HRs, to what kind of leverage can you use, what kind of expertise can you use in order to optimize the strategy and to be able to, to adapt your function and to adapt yourself and being happy in your function with this new strategic phase of your function. So on this, I would like to leave the floor to Vincent.
It's my turn. Okay, thank you, Alicia. So we start with the next slide, please. Okay, thank you very much. So welcome everyone. So today we will explore how global immigration changes, so far from being only constraints, of course, can become a powerful tool for HR strategy. Between 25 and expecting 26, talent scarcity and regulatory shifts will definitely force organizations to reinvent how they attract, move, and retain global talent. We are entering a period where all the global talent shortages, demographic decline, accelerating immigration changes are totally reshaping the way the companies hire and mobilize their international employees. So, what about the global talent landscape? As I just say, major economies are facing demographic decline, and that's resulting in a shrinking workforce. So, at the same time, we have this demand for highly skilled professionals, and particularly in tech, intelligence artificielle, engineering, cybersecurity, healthcare, and it's totally exploding in those fields. So countries are responding by revising immigration rules, creating both opportunities and new complexities at the same time. Um, this context makes international mobility a strategic priority rather than only an administrative function. And this is really important because about international talent management essential, when you redesign an international talent strategy, we really need to think far beyond the visa. This, of course, includes, for instance, packages, ensuring like a competitive, fair, compliant compensation structures across multiple jurisdictions in each of the countries. We can talk about the legal and the tax consideration. We have to understand how assignments have an impact on social security, payroll, employment law, sorry. And of course, the famous, I speak a lot about this, the risk assessment, because anticipating immigration timelines, restrictions, hidden costs. So, successful companies integrate mobility into their overall HR and employer branding approach. And the last part here is the immigration and legal consideration. Of course, we're going to do a deep dive later in the immigration topics. Every assignment must really correspond to the appropriate legal category because a mismatch between the business purpose and the immigration route can totally create compliance violations. Your team, HR, international mobility, must ensure that their internal policies reflect the obligation, such as right to work checks with work permits, host country reporting, and of course, all the documentation requirements. So the organization 2026 that will anticipate legal changes will reduce the risk and avoid delays that can affect business performances. So we're going to the next slide, please, Alessia. Let's go a little bit further. Let's talk about recent immigration changes. Of course, I'm going to take the example of France. Um, in France, we are seeing reinforced controls, stricter documentation requirements, and more scrutiny on short-term work and service provision. Let's take, for example, the new remuneration thresholds that recently was introduced in France to the qualified for the talent skilled employee status, which having been revised downwards. And this has a significant impact on the country's attractiveness. And of course, will help you and HR departments to recruit for candidates because this is easing the process for accompanying family members. And for instance, no need for a prior work permit before arrival. Also, we had this reform about the new list of short-staffed jobs for which the 3-week market test is now waived. So this is all very interesting. And this is part of this policy that we put, the new policy in France. Let's speak a little bit, of course, we're in the British Chamber about the Brexit. This fundamentally changed the UK's immigration regime because citizens of the EU no longer have free movement rights. So it's a total different immigration system we now have to align with when moving or having a mobility to the UK. And this shift has a major implication of how the UK attract, retains, and competes for global talents, and how companies in France and elsewhere view the UK as a destination. And on international, more this very large on a global level, countries such as the US, of course, Canada, and also inside of Europe are introducing new talent attraction system while simultaneously tightening compliance. So this is really interesting. This is totally new since a few years. So HR impacts, short and long-term impacts. Well, in the short-term impact, companies will face recruitment delays, administrative bottlenecks, and need for rapid expertise to remain compliant. For the long term, your organization must rethink how mobility supports future workforce planning. Digital tool, predictive monitoring, and scenario planning. This will definitely become essential. We must say right now that immigration is no longer a transactional activity. It's a total component of the talent strategy. So let's go to next slide with our deep dive in immigration topics. That immigration topic the HR must master. So next slide. This was just an introduction slide. Thank you, Alessia. Let's go and see the immigration statuses and when to use them. Immigration pathway are not interchangeable, and each category is, we can say, designed for a specific business purpose. So the key for you is to choose the route that aligns with the length of the assignment, the nature of the work, and the employment relationship, rather than what seems quickest or most convenient. If we take the example of the international service provision or temporary cross-border assignments, this route involves an employee remaining on the home country employment terms while temporarily performing a service abroad. It works best for short, clearly defined projects that require special skills and available locally, and where there's no intention to establish on a long-term presence in the country. So the advantage include very rapid deployment. You constantly use this one, continuity of home payroll, and very big flexibility for a project-based work. But of course, authorities are increasingly scrutinizing these assignments. If the host entity directs the work, this arrangement may be treated as a local employment relationship. So, longer or revenue generating activity may also trigger corporate tax exposure, payroll, social security obligation, and can also shift to the host country. So, in this international service provision or cross-border assignments, extensions of assignments often raise concerns because of temporary assignments must genuinely remain temporary. If you take the short-term business work route, oh, I already had this discussion with a lot of people present today, and I made a few webinars on this part. I love this one because short-term routes usually allows limited business activity on brief periods of work, if we say work, such as attending meetings, providing training, resolving urgent issues, and they are most suitable for activities like client support, conferences, knowledge transfer, where no really ongoing employment duties are performed locally. And these routes are typically fast to obtain, inexpensive, and definitely low in administrative burden. Famous invitation letter from the home host country. Obtaining a short visa is much more easier than a long-term assignment visa. But this the limitation includes strict duration caps, as I just said, a narrow definition of permitted activities. What are we allowed to do on a business trip? And it rarely provide access to local benefits or to long-term stays. So really careful of this, of the use of the short-term business immigration status. If we speak about the intra-group transfer, this is a very nice one. An intra-group transfer allows an employee to move between related entities with the same corporate group, the same corporate group. So this is best suited for medium, long-term assignments focused on leadership development, knowledge transfer, what more, or retaining institutional expertise across subsidiaries. The intra-group really help maintaining business continuity and support global talent development under a clear employer framework. But however, they require strong justification for the role, the skills involved, and the business needs. You have the problem of the salary levels because they often mismatch markets, local market standards, and documentation requirements can be substantial for, let's example, for the ICT status all around the world. You have a lot of intra-group movements. So in many countries, the intra-group do not automatically lead to a permanent residence. But overall, this route is most effective when the assignment is strategic rather than urgent. Well, you know about the local hiring, the fourth one, or the permanent immigration. This local hiring involves placing the employee on host country employment terms, often with a pathway to long-term residence. So this is the best option for building a stable workforce and filling roles that form part of ongoing operations. This route supports full integration into the local labor market and provides a clear employment rights, reduces needs for repeated visa renewals. However, of course, there's also something a little bit more negative. It can require longer processing times, higher upfront costs, and a total compliance with local salary or labor market requirements. It was all checked from all employees in each country for this. But this path makes most sense when the role is permanent and part of a long-term business plan. So the principle is really to match the business purpose to the immigration category. As I just say, short-term needs should be met with short-term routes, project-based expertise with temporary assignments, group developments with intra-group transfer, and ongoing operational roles with local hiring. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. Of course, the immigration is not alone. There are cross-cutting topics. You know this one, and you know that it's now totally part of your international mobility model, like tax, social security, payroll, because different immigration statuses can fundamentally change an employer's tax withholding duties, his social security contributions, and of course the payroll setup. In some cases, an assignment may trigger host country tax liabilities, even if the employee remains on a home country contract. Expatriate tax equalization or protection policies may also be needed to ensure the employee is not financially disadvantaged by the move. So it is essential to model the total cost of the assignment, included salary, taxes, social security, benefits, and of course, immigration fees, because the cheapest visa route does not always result in the lowest overall costs. What about employment law and termination risk? Well, local employment laws can apply even when the employer did not intend to create a local employment relationship. It's quite funny. In some jurisdiction, rights such as minimum notice, social insurance, overtime pay, over hours, this can attach retroactively if authorities determine that the employment was effectively working under local control. This is why legal advice is critical, especially in countries just like China and lately Thailand, where a recent legal clarification have strengthened the presumption of local employment relationships. A misalignment between immigration status and actual working arrangements can totally lead to costly termination disputes. Of course, now data privacy and background checks. Um, Immigration processes typically requires the transfer of personal data, sometimes across borders, which mean privacy regulation like GDPR, of course, and local data protection laws that must be observed. So the employer must ensure that consent, data storage, data sharing practices are totally compliant and transparent. Again, background checks, medical exams, security clearances must be handled lawfully. And only information that is necessary for the immigration process should be collected. We always have this kind of problem at data. Beware of sharing data. The new forms of mobility, talking about remote work, digital nomads, because some, I say some, but a lot of countries now offers digital nomad or remote work visa that can be very attractive for talent mobility. However, allowing employees to work remotely from another jurisdiction for extended periods can trigger local employment rights. Here we come back to my employment law and tax obligation. Here I go back to my tax and social security obligation. So this can be at risk, even if no formal work format visa is required because they've got this visa, nomad visa or remote work visa. So this remote work should be treated as a legal presence, not just as a lifestyle choice. Really important. And organization needs clear policies and approval pathways for this remote work and digital nomads, as it has also this big link with immigration. And of course, big word that is since a few years, compliance and audit readiness. Um, Governments are increased audits, inspections, work inspectorates are often on the field, and penalties for non-compliance with immigration and right to work rules are there. So employers, so you, international mobility services, should really maintain clear records of assignments, business justifications, payroll arrangements, and eligibility checks. Yes, let's go to the next slide. Okay, the practical playbook. That's for you could be quite interested. How to optimize your HR talent strategy with its immigration topics. Well, tactical steps, of course, as immediate actions. Each HR teams should introduce standardized mobility intake checklist for every international hire that captures the role, the business needs, the intended duration, the proposed immigration status, the budget, and of course, a person responsible for compliance. You should map critical and time sensitive hires to the fastest and most reliable immigration pathway. Like global talent stream in Canada, or think about France talent uh, pathway immigration statuses, because you should be trained now. We all have to be trained on how to identify and flag immigration constraints at the very first point of the contact, so that the hiring process does not advance on unrealistic assumption. This happens all the way. We think that we have to go fast. We choose an immigration status, and then at the end, it can become very difficult and complex because we're not really into why what he's here for in the home country, in the host country. Sorry. So your strategic initiative, well, at the strategic level, you all know this. You should work building a global mobility center of excellence that provides central governments while leveraging local experts, very important local experts, and created vendor panel, included legal counsel, or why not employer of record providers, relocation partners. There are a lot of stakeholders now to take into account. And this all started with this immigration decision you took. There's a lot of about data and digitizing. You have this investment in technologies. Immigration 2.0 is very important. So we have to have a visa case management platforms, compliance dashboards, scenario planning tools, because this can really, really improve visibility and decision making in the beginning of the when you're thinking about sending someone abroad. You can develop, and a lot of you already did this, of course, and this gives a kind reminder. Do not hesitate to develop status-based playbooks with clear templates, like for intergroup transfer, service provision, your short-term business routes, logo hire, including again the budget and your risk matrices. It's really helpful to have this different route and this clear templates. And you can form partnership with university or government talent programs that has clicks all around the globe in key markets, like premium resident scheme that exists in different countries, because this is really that can expand long-term talent pipelines. Let's speak about people, culture intervention. From a people perspective, strengthening onboarding for cross-boarding assignees, sorry, through like cultural training is really important. Local membership. You arrive somewhere in your majors, you arrive in another culture, new colleagues. So local mentorship that can really accelerate integration and reduce the assignment failure risk. Um, in markets that offer long-term visa, uh, the, the if I say premium talent residency option or similar instruments, and can be really used as powerful retention levers when paired with transparent career advancement opportunities. So the goal is not just to move people efficiently, but also to ensure that they feel supported, committed, and able to thrive in the new environment. It's a win-win, may I say, situation. So if I want to do a very short conclusion before I give again the floor to Alessia, and that we open perhaps to the discussion or questions. Um, in a world of accelerating talent shortages, immigration becomes really strategic lever. Organization that anticipates regulatory changes and select the right mobility framework, build robust internal governments, will outperform competitors in talent acquisition and retention. Because I would say the goal is not only to react to change, but it is to turn it into opportunity. So now, Alessia, if you have a few words, I give back the floor to you, and then we can open the discussion if people are willing to ask some questions.
Merci. Yes, it's just to conclude on all what Vincent has just covered, because there is a lot, and actually the mainstream, if I may say, of this and the goal of this webinar were to trying to tell you that there are challenges in the function, HR talent, international HR talent function and global mobility function, which appeared those 3-4 last years, sorry. And there is also the actual economical situation worldwide, which is not as when we see it on TV or something. It's not something which is very motivating to establish a international talent strategy. But most of you knows very well that it's not really true, and those challenges are, for most of them, can be turned in opportunities. But actually, the way we did it before, so in using the traditional ways of mobility, the traditional questions before hiring in international talent or something, those things are not really working anymore. So just to re-put the words regarding what has been changed, it's mostly the questions, this strategic path of the mobility and international talent, which is very important actually. As Vincent said, there are a lot of possibilities and there are a lot of challenges which may be turned in opportunities in immigration and also in protectional way. The countries are actually to establish their immigration policies and so on. And as international HR and or global mobility professional, you are not support anymore just finding a quick solutions for business, but it's really a more strategic and more there is more reflection and more questioning in this strategy and establishment of this strategy. So just to summarize, the questions before an assignment or deciding a foreigner hiring, there are some questions: who, why, and what is planned after. So actually, those three questions are very important in an operational way, as Vincent said, in order to choose the right status, to calculate the impacts on legal perspective and tax and so on and so on. But also we return to the return on investment to be sure that who will benefit from this deal. Actually, why we do this and why we take this person and what this person will do after. Because if I can give a quick example, we had a lot of those in our day-to-day work. We are helping hundreds of companies every year in Santa Fe, and we had these last years. We had a lot of questions regarding. We decided a long-term assignment, an expatriate contract, and actually we didn't really ask the questions to the assignee, and he went to the country to stay there. So actually, we established an expatriate contract, but it had to be a local contract, and the company are losing a lot of money in the long term, because, as you all know, expatriate contract is more costly than a local contract. So asking those questions are actually a big part of this strategy for long term. So also, what I would like to conclude on is, if you have some sharings, you can just put it in the chat, or speaking. I don't know if we can, if
I
people
got
can
one.
speak.
I forgot to give the example you asked me to tell me when I can back the floor, because I got two real case studies for the audience. So tell me when I give the examples.
Go,
I go, okay, I've got two very simple examples. What happened? I was working at International Mobility in a group, and we had this problematic of a project where we had to have one of the assignee intra-group to come very fast in France and work on the project. So for a strategy reason, we decided to use the business trip, of course, and with a simple letter of invitation and with the risk assessment, and we know we could be at risk. And so this assignee had to come for 3 weeks, so we arrived on the business trip. And at the same time, we had prepared for another one from the same country, and we had prepared that for a long time with the work permits. And so he obtained a work permit, he obtained a short-term visa with the mention work, allowed to work, with also bringing with him a certificate of coverage from the Social Security, because it was with the country where there was a Social Security convention, bilateral agreement. But the other one didn't, because it was a business trip, and they arrived and they were working on the same project, which was not a very good idea from us. So what happened? We said, okay, we take the risk for the 3 weeks. He had to be there on Monday, so he took the flight. He had his visa in a few days. He had the visa and he arrived. And imagine what happened. Work inspector entered the office that day, and the work inspector, seeing those two assignees working on the same project, went to ask them some questions. And he realized at that moment that they were working on the same projects, working on the same level, doing exactly the same job, but one with a visa, with a work permit, and the other as a simple business trip. Of course, you know what happened. He was not very happy with this. And the business trip was requalified in a work relationship as the other one, because he was really, of course, working on a French project. So, of course, we had to pay a penalty. We had to re-ask for the work permit, and then it triggered also the problem social security, because he was there for 3 weeks and he had a coverage, private coverage. So we did something really wrong. We were not good at that moment. So what happened? We also had the social security problem by who's paying, how is he covered, because he's working without a work permit, and the other one was working. You see, so changing the status while not using the same path for one to another will trigger a lot of problems. Of course, we were not lucky because the work inspector arrived at that moment. And we changed our policy at that moment after we had this big problem. And it costed a lot of money. The work inspector was not very happy. He sent us the social security inspector also after that, URSAF. And we don't like when URSAF is coming, of course. So we did our best. It was business related. The manager wanted him to come, and we wanted to that everyone was happy, the client, the business manager, and it ended up to be a big fail because we're totally compliant, and we should have said at that moment, no, it's not possible, and you have to go through the same routes for each if they're doing the same job. The second example I will have, not a lot time ago, we had a call with Alicia from one of our partners, and they were about a director coming to France, wanted to work here. They wanted to do a work permit, expatriation contract. Guys, okay, for no problems until here. And then one might say, but how long is he willing to stay? And they say, well, now he's only staying 2 years. I say, okay, but you want to relocate him to France, definitely. Or, oh, no, it's just a 2-year mission, and then he can go back to the US. And I was like, okay, but why is it your policy to sign work contracts in France, or was it just because you didn't have any idea to another path? And we started talking about the intra-group mobility that allows him, this director, to come for this temporary mission without signing any contracts in France, without having the problem also from the social security contribution, as we have a bilateral agreement on social security between France and the US that allows him to have his payroll still in the US, and with also the retirement scheme in the US, which was a better one than the one in France. And finally, we find now that the intra-group mobility for this quite short period of 2 years was much better than entering the European blue cards system for this director. So after discussion, also with the director, for the assignee, they decided to go through that path. So you see that even a simple discussion and every little details are very important, like the duration of the stay, what is your mobility policy scheme, what does the assignee want to do. And if we work together on this, you can find a different path, and that allows everybody to be very happy. So that's were the two examples I wanted to give. Thank you.